When you really think about it, there's nothing more painful than wasting time. We lose money. We can earn it back. We lose opportunities. Sometimes another appears. But time, once it's gone, it never returns. And yet, strangely, most people don't feel the loss. They go through their days half awake, repeating routines, living on autopilot, convinced that tomorrow will be a better day, that someday they will start. And someday becomes weeks, weeks become years, and suddenly life has slipped through their fingers. I have seen this pattern over and over for decades now. Good, intelligent, capable people wasting the best years of their lives without even realizing it. Not because they were lazy, not because they were stupid, but because they thought they had time. They believed life was long. They believed opportunity would come again. They believed motivation would strike someday. And while they were waiting, life was moving. I want to tell you a story, a real story. Years ago, I knew a man who was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He could have been anything, entrepreneur, investor, anything. When he was in his 20s, he was full of energy, ideas, ambition. Every time I met him, he would tell me about the things he wanted to do. I'm going to start my own company, he'd say. I've got an idea that could make millions, and I believed him. He was smart, but then his job got busy. He said, I'll start after this project. Then he got promoted. I start next year, once things settle down. Then he got married. You'll start once we save some money. Then the kids came. I'll start once they're older. You already know how this story ends. The kids grew. The years passed. He kept postponing. Last time I saw him, he was 62. He told me, I still want to start that company. Maybe after I retire. His eyes had a quiet sadness. Not regret exactly, but something deeper. A realization. The realization that he never started. Life didn't get in the way. He just waited too long. And time took everything from him quietly. That is how most people waste their best years. Not with a crash, not with a dramatic failure, but with postponement, with small delays. With later. Later is the most dangerous word in the human language. Later is how dreams die. There is a strange illusion that tricks almost everyone. The belief that the future will be easier than today. Once things calm down, once I have more money, once I feel ready, but the future never gets easier. Life never becomes less complicated. There is always something, a problem, a distraction, a duty. And so people carry their dreams like heavy luggage they never unpack. Years pass and they never open the suitcase. They never begin. You know what's tragic? They don't realize they've wasted their best years until those years are gone. When you're 20, you think you have decades. When you're 30, you still feel young. At 40, life gets busy. And at 50, many people look back and think, where did the time go? But time didn't disappear. It was traded for scrolling, for comfort, for routine, for distractions, for things that seemed important but weren't. People don't waste their lives on purpose. They waste them by accident. They get caught in patterns. They get caught in patterns. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. They're not unhappy. They're not miserable. They're just numb. And numbness is deadly because it feels safe. You think you're okay? You think life is normal. But normal is how potential is buried. Normal is how dreams fade. I once asked someone, if you knew you only had 3 years left to live, what would you do? The answer came instantly. Everything I've been postponing. That tells you something powerful. We already know what we want. We already know what matters. We just don't act. Not because we're unsure, but because we think we have time. And we don't. None of us do. Time is the most valuable asset we have, and it is slipping away every second. If you think about your life, really think, there was a period when you had energy, ambition, hunger. Maybe in your 20s, maybe in your 30s. And what did you do with that energy? Did you invest it? Did you channel it into something meaningful, or did you waste it on routine? There is a moment, everyone has it, when they realize life is not infinite. For some, it comes after a birthday. For others, after an illness. For others, after a loved one dies. Suddenly they feel the weight of time. Suddenly they see the truth. The best years are gone. It breaks them. And yet, they were never aware when they were wasting those years. That's the painful part. When life is moving, you don't feel the loss. You feel like you're busy. You feel like you're doing things. But being busy is not the same as living. You can spend 30 years being busy and never move an inch closer to who you wanted to become. People confuse activity with progress. They mistake motion for meaning. They think if they are working, they are living. But often they are only surviving, only maintaining, only existing. I've met people who wake up at 60 and say, I don't even know who I am anymore. And that is not because something suddenly changed. It is because they never stopped to ask the question earlier. They were always rushing, always distracting themselves, always postponing the real work. And the real work was themselves. The saddest thing is that many people never discover their potential. They never discover their courage. They never discover their purpose, not because it wasn't there, but because they never made room for it. They filled their lives with everything except what mattered. They filled their days with small things, and small things consumed them. You know what I've learned observing thousands of people? Most lives don't collapse. They just evaporate, slowly, quietly, one routine day at a time. One I'll do it later at a time. And then suddenly, it's too late to start over. That is the tragedy. People think the danger is failing. But the real danger is never trying. Failure hurts, yes, but regret hurts forever. Failure teaches. Regret robs you. You have one life, one chance, one window. And that window, whether you see it or not, is closing every day. The best years are not guaranteed. They are not endless. They are not permanent. They are temporary. And if you spend them waiting, they will disappear. Nobody warns you about that. Nobody tells you that comfort is more dangerous than hardship. Hardship wakes you up. Comfort puts you to sleep. And when you are asleep, life moves without you. Most people think they are safe because they are comfortable. But comfort is the enemy. Comfort steals ambition. Comfort turns dreams into memories. Comfort makes your life smaller every year. And the worst part is, comfort feels nice. Without pain. Without pain. You don't feel the damage until it is too late. That is how 90% of people waste their best years. Not dramatically, not visibly, but comfortably. Comfortably, comfortably, distracted, comfortably asleep. There is only one question that matters now. Are you awake or are you sleeping? Are you living or are you simply existing? Are you moving towards something or are you moving in circles? You know the answer. Everyone does. Deep inside, we know if we are wasting time. We can feel it. A quiet dissatisfaction, a quiet fear, a quiet voice that says, I was meant for more. That voice never lies. That voice is the truth. There is a strange moment that happens in most lives, but very few people notice it when it arrives. It is the moment where dreams begin to shrink. Not because people suddenly stop dreaming, but because their reality starts to settle. They stop imagining a big life and start accepting a smaller one. They don't say it out loud. They don't admit it even to themselves. But their choices begin to reveal the truth. They wake up, go to work, come home, watch something on a screen, sleep, repeat. At first they tell themselves this is temporary. They are just waiting for the right time. But slowly, without realizing, they adjust. The postponement becomes permanent. The routine becomes identity. And one day, They are no longer the person they wanted to be. They are simply a person who goes through days without meaning. This is how most people lose their prime years, not in chaos, not in crisis, but in repetition. They live the same year 30 times and call it a life. The world looks busy, but inside they feel empty. They look around and convince themselves it is normal. Everybody's doing it. Everybody is tired. Everybody is waiting. So they wait too. They wait for inspiration. They wait for motivation. They wait for confidence. They wait for the right moment. They wait for permission. And in that waiting, their best years disappear. I often think about how subtle the real dangers of life are. When something terrible happens, a job loss, a breakup, a sickness, people wake up. They make decisions, they fight, they change. Hardship has a way of shaking us. Comfort. Comfort whispers. Comfort tells you everything is fine. Comfort tells you there is no urgency. Comfort makes you believe there will always be tomorrow. But comfort is a trap. The trap is that nothing hurts, so nothing changes. When life is painful, you move. When life is comfortable, you stay. And staying is how potential dies. The people who wasted their best years rarely feel bad while it's happening. In fact, they feel fine. They feel safe. The slow decline of ambition is gentle. You don't wake up one day and realize you stopped growing. It happens one compromise at a time. You wanted to start something big, but work was busy, so you said later. You wanted to get healthy, but you were tired, so you said tomorrow. You wanted to learn something new, but you were distracted, so you said next week. And because nothing terrible happened immediately, you believed everything was okay. But every time you said later, a piece of your future quietly disappeared. This is why the most dangerous years of life are not the difficult years. They are the comfortable ones. When life gets easy, ambition fades. When life is predictable, curiosity dies. When everything is fine, most people stop reaching. They stop taking risks. They stop dreaming. And nothing kills a life faster than the absence of a dream. I met a man last year around 50. He told me something that haunted me. He said, "I didn't waste my life. I just waited too long to start living it." There was no anger in his voice, no blame. Just a soft sadness. He had been responsible. He had worked. He had provided. He had played by the rules. But somewhere along the way, he forgot himself. The years that were meant for building, he spent maintaining. The years that were meant for adventure, he spent being practical. And practicality is another quiet killer. It sounds wise. It sounds responsible. But when it becomes a habit, it becomes a cage. There is a difference between being responsible and being dead while alive. Most people do not lose their dreams because they fail. They lose their dreams because they never seriously pursued them. They were too busy surviving. They were too busy being comfortable. They were too busy fitting in. They believed success required big decisions. But success is not built on big decisions. It is built on small ones, on daily ones, on boring ones. Every day you choose, grow a little or decay a little. And most people, without meaning to, choose decay. They choose the easy path, the easy food, the easy entertainment, the easy conversation, the easy habits, the easy life. But the easy life is expensive. It costs everything. It costs health. It costs confidence. It costs pride. It costs dreams. It costs time. Life becomes smaller, not because it has to, but because people allow it to. The saddest part is that potential doesn't disappear suddenly. It fades, slowly, like light at sunset. You don't notice when the day turns into dusk. You only notice when darkness surrounds you. That is how life works. One day you are young and full of energy, and then one day you are older and you wonder where the energy went, but it didn't go anywhere. It was drained, drained by repetition, drained by numbing routine, drained by distractions that felt harmless at the time. People will waste whole years on things that don't matter, whole years on jobs they hate, whole years on relationships that don't grow them, whole years pleasing others, following rules, being polite, being safe. And all the while, a quiet voice inside keeps whispering, "This isn't me," but they ignore it. They push it away. They tell themselves they are being realistic. They are being mature. They are being adults. But adulthood without vision is just aging. And aging without purpose is just survival. There is a point in every life when you either wake up or you continue sleeping until the end. And waking up is not comfortable. Waking up is painful. Waking up means looking in the mirror and admitting, "I've wasted time." Most people never want to do that. They'd rather defend their past than build their future. They'd rather justify their choices than change them. They would rather be right than be transformed. But transformation requires honesty. Brutal honesty. The kind that makes you uncomfortable. The kind that makes you realize you could have been more. You could have done more. You could have lived more. That truth hurts, but that pain is the doorway. If you feel no pain, you will never walk through it. There is a reason why 90% of people waste their best years. They don't question anything. They accept the script they were given. Go to school, get a job, get married, buy a house, retire, then die. And somewhere in between, they hope they will find happiness. But happiness is not found. Happiness is built. Meaning is not found. Meaning is created. You cannot live on autopilot and expect a life of purpose. Life doesn't reward intentions. It rewards actions. And the world belongs to the people who make decisions. The world belongs to those who start. You do not need to be brilliant. You do not need to be extraordinary. You just need to begin. The reason so many people waste their best years is simple. They are always preparing. They are always planning. They are always thinking, but they never actually begin. Waiting is seductive because it feels sensible. It feels intelligent. It feels safe. When someone says, "I'm not ready yet," nobody challenges them. Nobody asks why. Nobody says, "Ready for what? When will you be ready?" Waiting is socially accepted. It is respectable. It sounds wise, but most waiting is just fear wearing a mask. Fear disguised as logic. Fear disguised as preparation. Fear disguised as maturity. People say they are waiting for the right moment, but there is no right moment. There is only now. And now is messy. Now is full of uncertainty. That is why people avoid it. They want clarity before they begin. They want a guarantee. They want certainty. But life gives no guarantees. Clarity comes from movement. Certainty comes from experience. You don't get confidence first. You get confidence after. I've watched so many people sacrifice their potential because of waiting. They wait for the kids to grow. They wait for the debt to disappear. They wait for their schedule to clear. They wait for their energy to return. They wait for permission. They wait for motivation. They wait for someday, and someday never arrives. Someday never arrives. Someday is a fantasy, a story we tell ourselves to avoid taking responsibility. Someday is always in the future, and the future keeps moving away. Waiting is the easiest way to waste a life because you feel innocent while doing it. You don't feel guilty for waiting. You feel justified. You feel reasonable. And yet every delay has a cost. Not a cost in money, but in possibility. The hardest truth is this: your best years have an expiration date. Energy has an expiration date. Curiosity has an expiration date. Courage has an expiration date. The desire to build, to explore, to be more, that is not permanent. People assume they will always be able to start later, but the mind changes, the body changes, the world changes, and the window quietly closes. One day, You will wake up and realize you don't want adventure anymore. You don't want risk anymore. You just want peace and familiarity. And then, even if you try to start, it will feel exhausting, overwhelming, impossible. That is the tragedy. People realize they are wasting time only when the appetite for change has already faded. By then, the best years are gone. Comfort is dangerous because it makes decay feel like rest. You tell yourself you are taking a break. You tell yourself you deserve it. You tell yourself it's only temporary. But temporary becomes permanent. Rest becomes avoidance. Avoidance becomes lifestyle. And lifestyle becomes identity. Eventually, you don't even remember what you were avoiding. You just know you don't want to be uncomfortable again. You have settled. You have made peace with smallness. You have forgotten the fire you had once. When people say, "I've changed," they often mean they have become tired. Not wiser, not stronger, just tired. And tiredness can become a personality if you let it. There is another illusion that steals the best years, the illusion of productivity. People think they are living because they are busy. They mistake motion for progress. They work long hours. They answer emails. They run errands. They run errands. They go to meetings. They fill their schedules. But being busy is not the same as being alive. You can spend your whole life busy and accomplish nothing meaningful. Productivity without purpose is just noise. And noise keeps you from hearing yourself. Most people are not too lazy to follow their dreams. They are too distracted. Distraction feels harmless. You don't feel like you are failing. You feel entertained. You feel occupied. But the hours disappear, and so do the years. Modern life is full of distractions designed to consume attention. Screens, notifications, entertainment, comfort food, comfort conversations, comfort dopamine. People numb their dissatisfaction without ever addressing it, and numbness feels better than truth. If you want to know how people waste their best years, look at their evenings, look at their weekends. Look at what they do with free time. Most people don't rest, they escape. They avoid thinking. They avoid reflection. They avoid silence. Because silence is dangerous. In silence, you hear the truth. You hear the voice that says, "This isn't enough." And rather than listen, most people drown that voice in noise. That is how life disappears, not dramatically, quiet. There is another reason 90% of people waste their best years. They follow the crowd. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be different. They don't want to be judged. So they follow the same timeline as everyone else. Study, work, marry, buy things. Save a little. Retire. This is not a life. This is a template, a default settings option. And default is never extraordinary. You cannot live a remarkable life while trying to fit into an unremarkable system. The world around you is full of people who have settled. Settled for a job, settled for a relationship, settled for a lifestyle, settled for an identity. And because you see this everywhere, it feels normal. But normal is not healthy. Normal is not alive. Normal is not fulfilling. Normal is just average. And average is where dreams go to die. The people who live fully are not the ones who know more. They are the ones who dare more. They take risks. They begin before they feel ready. They are willing to look foolish. They are willing to fail. They are willing to be uncomfortable. They do not wait for confidence. They create it. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a result. You act first. Confidence arrives later. Most people get this backward. They wait for confidence before acting, and confidence never comes. That is why they stay stuck. There is a time when courage is natural, a time when energy is abundant, a time when risks feel exciting. Those are the prime years, the most precious years, and those years are often spent trying to seem responsible, trying to seem normal, trying to avoid mistakes, but mistakes are how you grow. Mistakes are how you become yourself. There is no achievement without discomfort. There is no transformation without uncertainty. People want change without chaos, growth without pain, success without sacrifice. That is impossible. Life punishes hesitation, not immediate. Not obviously, but slowly. Hesitation costs opportunity. Opportunity costs time. Time is life. You can recover from failure. You can recover from embarrassment. You can recover from disappointment. But you cannot recover lost years. Once they are gone forever. There is a moment when people realize this, a moment of awakening. Sometimes it comes at 5, sometimes at 50. But when it comes, it is like a shock. You look at your life and suddenly see how much time was wasted, how many dreams were postponed, how many chances were ignored, and something inside you either wakes up or shuts down. Some people make a sharp turn. They begin. They take action. Others become bitter. They blame the world. They blame their circumstances. They blame everyone except themselves, and that bitterness poisons the rest of their years. The difference between the 10% who live and the 90% who waste their best years is simple. The 10% choose discomfort. They choose uncertainty. They choose growth. They choose action. The 90% choose comfort. They choose distraction. They choose routine. They choose nothing. There comes a point in every life when the truth becomes impossible to ignore. You look around at your habits, your routines, your choices, and you finally see what they are costing you. Not money, but years. Not comfort, but purpose. Most people are asleep, walking through their days mechanically, doing what they've always done because it's easier than questioning anything. But the people who wake up, even if they're late, realize something powerful. The rest of their life is still theirs. The future is not gone. The window is smaller, yes, but it is still open. The turning point is rarely dramatic. It doesn't come with fireworks or a grand announcement. It usually comes in quiet moments. Sitting alone at night, thinking, feeling the weight of time, understanding that nothing will change unless you do. And at that moment, you face a choice. You can keep drifting, or you can take control. Most people don't take control because they believe change requires something massive. They think they need a big plan, a big idea, a big opportunity. But that belief is another trap. Life doesn't change through big decisions made once. It changes through small decisions made every day. A small step forward today is worth more than a perfect plan tomorrow. The people who waste their best years are the ones who are always planning, always preparing, always thinking, and never doing. Action is the cure. Not motivation, not inspiration, action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates identity. Identity creates destiny. You become what you repeatedly do. Most people think they need to feel ready before they act. But readiness is an illusion. No one feels ready. People who succeed don't feel ready. They act anyway. They start before they're prepared. They make mistakes. They learn. They groove. They improve. And eventually, others look at them and say, "You're so lucky." But luck is just visible effort. If you want to stop wasting time, here is the first truth. Start small. If you try to overhaul your life in a single week, you'll fail. The mind rejects massive change. The body rejects massive change. But small change is quiet. Brain doesn't fight it. When you get 1 hour better today, you don't feel overwhelmed. When you walk for 10 minutes, you don't resist it. When you read 10 pages, you don't argue with yourself. Small steps feel harmless. But repeated small steps are not harmless. They are transformative. They stack, they accumulate, they compound. Just like money, effort compounds over time. 1 hour a day becomes 365 hours a year. 5 years becomes 1825 hours of focused effort. That can change a life. That can build something remarkable. And yet, most people throw away hours like they mean nothing. They waste evenings, weekends, mornings, unconsciously, as if life is infinite. They value money more than time, but time is the currency that buys everything. Time buys health, time buys skill, time buys relationships, time buys freedom. You can always earn more money. The people who realize this early are dangerous. They move differently. They choose differently. They say no more often. They protect their time the way others protect their savings. They don't waste it on meaningless things or meaningless people. They are selective, not because they are arrogant, but because they understand cost. Everything has a cost. Even free things have a cost. A free distraction costs focus. A free habit costs years. There is another powerful shift that happens when people stop wasting time. Their standards change. They stop tolerating mediocrity in themselves, in others, in their surroundings. They no longer accept living on autopilot. They no longer accept boredom as normal. They no longer accept being alive without feeling alive. They understand something most people never realize. It is not life that becomes boring. People become boring when they stop growing. Growth is what makes life interesting. Growth is what makes life meaningful. Growth is what makes people feel proud when they wake up in the morning. Pride is not ego. Pride is the satisfaction of knowing you are becoming someone. Not who others expect, but who you were meant to be. The tragedy is not that people are incapable. The tragedy is that they never try. They keep waiting for motivation, not realizing motivation is the result of action, not the cause. You act first. Motivation comes after. Confidence comes after. Confidence comes after. No one starts with those things. You earn them. You build them. You build them. You create them. And once you start, once you begin doing the thing you've avoided, something miraculous happens. Time slows down. You feel present again. You feel alive. You are no longer drifting. You are directing. You are steering your own life. People waste their best years because they treat time as if it were infinite. But when you respect time, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop postponing. You stop saying, later. You look at your life and say, not tomorrow, today. Not someday, now. And that decision made daily separates the 10% who live from the 90% who only exist. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. Today is still yours. The question is not, how much time do I have left? The question is, how will I use the time I have left? You can spend the rest of your life looking back, or you can spend the rest of your life moving forward. Everything changes when you understand the true cost of waiting. Not comfort, not safety, but life. Waiting costs life, and life is the only thing you can't get back. The only thing more painful than failure is looking back and realizing you never even tried.